How are you doing? Saturday the 3rd of October was quite a big day of rugby league, and it came hot on the heels of a Friday where the NRL playoffs started. Basically what I intend to do now is a little review of what we've seen in the last day and a half. First of all, Penrith and the Roosters. First 10 minutes you thought Roosters were going to dominate. They got ahead quite early. But then the Panthers sort of clicked into gear. It seemed that the young Panthers were a bit nervous at the start of the game. Didn't know whether they felt they should be there, felt there should be something go wrong. I think there was a bit of something in the mentality at the start of that game. And there's no doubt that's because a lot of media types have been giving reasons and saying why they shouldn't win the competition rather than why they can. And I think it's 15 or 16 straight or something like that. And that's unprecedented. That's never been done before, to go 18 and win a comp. Well, guess what? Records are there to be broken, and just because it's never happened before doesn't mean it can't happen now. And I think Ivan Cleary needs to, if he's not doing, he's pump that message into them, because there's definitely enough talent there to win. What did strike me about the Penrith performance, though, were a couple of things. Ivan Cleary has obviously got them humming and playing a sort of a football that looks like they're playing with a gay abandon, even though there is a little bit of structure to it, but they look so comfortable with each other, they don't mind trying things. Particularly like the 5'8", he's fantastic. But Ivan Cleary's son Nathan, what a kicking game. That is one of the better kicking games I've seen in recent months. He was on point with everything. He kicked the Roosters to death. And what was big in that game, I felt, was that when the Roosters and the Panthers were going toe-to-toe with each other, the Roosters were making metres okay, but Panthers were really pressuring the kicker, and the Panthers just gradually started to win the field position battle, and that started to pay dividends to reap some rewards. What would concern me if it was Ivan Cleary was times when they switched off, and the game ended up quite close, and it was actually a Cleary drop goal that separated the two teams in the end. Well, is that because the Roosters are good and they've got players like James Addison in their team, or is that because the Panthers switched off? And the reality is the Panthers probably need to get that out of their game before the semi-final and the final, potentially the final. They've got plenty of time now with a week off to work on that and look at those things. The Roosters, on the other hand, there was a few sets in that game where on the last tackle they looked like they'd never met each other. And I know there's some younger players in there and they seemed a little bit weak down the middle of the field. I'm going to say two words: Cooper Cronk. I think they're really missing somebody like Cooper Cronk who's in midfield, just telling them what to do, obviously organising things in attack, but also when they concede a try, the wise man talking behind the sticks and saying what they need to do next, or if they concede a penalty or something like that. And I think that's something that the Roosters are really missing this year. So, to summarise Penrith and the Roosters, I think Penrith are obviously going to be confident, but there's something for other teams to go at with their little lack of concentration throughout the game. The Roosters, on the other hand, I think they're possibly there for the taking, because they're going to now meet the Raiders, who played on Saturday, and I thought they were excellent. Again, they didn't start very well. And one of the patterns I'm seeing, and I've seen this in a few games recently, the team that is the underdog starts really well. And they start at a pace that they probably can't keep to. And that's possibly what the Sharks were guilty of. They were the underdogs, I think, in that game. Everyone knows going to Canberra is a really tough trip. And they started so well that it's probably a pace that they couldn't keep up with. And I thought that the way the Raiders attacked looked very similar to Penrith, in that they just looked so happy, they looked connected, they looked confident, they tried things, and they just had so much X factor all around the park. Melbourne Storm, didn't they look good in their dismantling in the end of Parramatta? But again, Parramatta, you could tell nobody fancied them. If you looked at the betting odds, you could get quite a bit of coin if you put money on Parramatta. And Parramatta just started so well. But again, it was probably something that they couldn't sustain. And Melbourne eventually started to get hold of the game. the left edge of Melbourne was causing the right edge of Parramatta all sorts, and I tweeted about that at the time. So there's teams left in the competition: Parra, Melbourne, Penrith and the Roosters. And I think on reflection from the finals, the only team that I believe at the minute can cause Penrith or Melbourne trouble are the Raiders. But I actually think there's a matchstick difference between all of them. I don't think Roosters are the force that they've been the last couple of years. I don't think they're a nailed-on certainty for 3 on the trot, but I certainly think they could achieve it. But they've got to tidy up the last tackle, and they've got to have a bit more fortitude in defence when they're under a bit of pressure, and that's something they need to work on very quickly because they'll be playing in a week's time. Canberra, once they clicked into gear against Cronulla, there was no turning back. Whether they can do that away from home is another matter, but they will be full of motivation. Don't forget, it's only 12 months ago that the Roosters beat them in a grand final, and it was a tight grand final, and the Roosters will know that they're in for a tough game too. So next week I do fancy the Raiders just. Penrith got work to do, Melbourne have got work to do, but at the minute they've both earned their week off and they're 1 and 2 in the competition, so we've sort of got to say that they potentially look like being grand finalists. The South Sydney Rabbitohs and Newcastle play soon. I won't talk about that game, I'll do another video. What I do want to talk about is then I watched some of the English Super League Challenge Cup semi-finals. Well, first of all, it's great my hometown Salford got there, and well done to Leeds too. I will say this, and this is a very generic statement, I was very shocked at the fitness level across the board. I was very shocked at the intensity level. I know the conditions were bad, but honestly it looked like the players had had too much fun on lockdown. It's not good enough. They're full-time professionals and the game over there needs to be better. I've seen it incrementally drop down in standard over the last 10 years. I mean, you know, as an Englishman growing up, we always looked in awe of Australia and said, we're getting closer to the Aussies, we're getting closer to the Aussies, we're getting closer to the Aussies. And I've written several times on social media and on the website about how there's so many indicators that England isn't getting that much closer at all. In fact, it is actually retracting. It's going further back. And I think if any of those NRL sides that we've seen this weekend played against any of those Super League sides this week in a sudden death kind of game, I think there'd be 4 Australian victories or 6 Australian victories, whatever you want to say. I was really shocked with the level of athleticism, or therefore lack of, in comparison. And it's not that long ago that England and Rugby League in England was doing okay from a performance point of view. I worked personally under David Waite and people like Chris Chapman and stuff like that. We had real good development systems that brought kids through. There was obviously a bottleneck of certain things, but there was also coaching standards that were of a certain standard in terms of technical skill, in terms of fitness level, in terms of tackle technique and all that kind of thing. I've just seen that slip away gradually over the last decade. So I'm not taking anything away from Salford and Leeds, who got to their final. They're the best in their pool as things stand, but ultimately my big takeaway was in the drop of standard in Super League, and until that is changed, until that is addressed, then any time that they play Australia, they're going to suffer. And I know, you know, I'm mates with Sean Wayne, like he's not going to like to hear that, but honestly the standard of the competition in England has dropped significantly in my point of view. And what's in England's favour is there's so many English people playing in the NRL at the minute, and obviously Canberra is one of the teams that are full of them. But what a great day if you're a Rugby League fan. I didn't actually watch all the Challenge Cup games because I'm a Manchester City fan, and they bloody drew with Leeds, didn't they? So they're not going to win anything either. They've retracted too. Alright, all good. See ya.